Yeah, big time. Number 9. Diamonds in my teeth. I got a lot of shine.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's pre-lock show for NBA. We have a nice 5-game slate on deck. Nothing too crazy, but we are here to break it down. We have a good amount of injury news on this slate, and I like it. I like the way the slate's shaking up. I think we have some interesting low-owned plays we can attack, but then also some chalk we like it a decent amount. But how are you feeling about it, Brandon? Good to be back with you as well.
Yep. Always good to be back on the show. I feel like it's been a minute. But yeah, definitely love 5-gamers. I do like this one, but I feel like it's a little chaotic with all the value we have, and then the Giannis news looming around, which we'll cover how we're approaching. So, but yeah, definitely a lot of low on spots that I love as well, and I think there's some good spots we can get some leverage on tonight.
Yeah, agreed. And most importantly is end of the season NBA basketball. When there's a ton of games on the slate, I can't do it. I don't know how people can, but when there's like 3 to 7 games, that's very doable. We can actually analyze these situations a bit more. And of course, the DS is on top of it too. Martez, what's up, man? Thank you for joining. Cedric, man, appreciate you. Tattoo, look, goats, you're very high. I feel you, man. Martez said, I'm having a hard time deciding if I want to spend up for Okongwu or not. Good question. We'll get there here soon. But let's get into it. We have the Knicks going up against the Pistons first. 3.5-point spread. Decent total at 229. For the Knicks tonight, Josh Hart is out. That's pretty big for this team. OG Anunoby is out. Also big. And then Mitchell Robinson is out, which kind of makes us feel a little bit better about Precious Achiuwa. But Brandon, how are you attacking the Knicks tonight?
So I'll start with Cat. I like this spot for him quite a bit. Of course, with Giannis, if you take him out of the mix, if you don't think he plays, there's not really many spend-ups, or I'll say reliable spend-ups. So the way I'm playing the Giannis situation, I'm naturally getting a lot of Cat. So I'm okay eating the exposure there. He's currently a core play for me. Precious, I put a 40% min on him just to make sure he doesn't go below that. Again, with how I'm playing the Giannis situation, that's affecting my exposure here. So I wasn't getting quite as much as I wanted, but at least 40% I'm okay with. And then the only other one I did something to was Mikal Bridges, put a 20% min on him. I love his price. He isn't the most consistent, but hard not to play him in this spot without Hart and OG. So definitely like him tonight as well.
Agreed. When Hart and OG are out, Cat sees the highest increase in usage at about 6%, and then it's Bridges right underneath him, which surprised me a bit that it wasn't Brunson. But that's part of why I'm not forcing exposure to Brunson tonight. I don't love the matchup going up against the Pistons. For me, the priorities are Cat. Don't really have to do anything to make him show up. And then I have Bridges, a 20% min on him as well. I did a similar thing with Precious. We have a lot of really good value on this slate, but he's still a 3,300 player, projected to see 30-plus minutes tonight, and should start in this spot as well. If he doesn't start, I get a bit more nervous, but he's someone I want to see show up in my lines tonight as well. So that's pretty much it for me. It looks like Campaign is projecting decently well, but he's not showing up in my lines. Brunson's only showing up in about 7% of my lines, so that's going to be a fade for me tonight unless something changes dramatically in the DS. Next up, we have the Pistons side of things going up against the Knicks. These guys aren't really showing up for you at all by yourself. I didn't do anything to the Pistons, and I have Cade showing up in about 7% of my lines currently, and that's it. Brandon, what are you doing? What's your approach here?
Yeah, it was really just Cade and moved on from his team. Not my favorite matchup for him. And then Cade, I always mention him. He's just someone I always want exposure to, especially on a smaller slate like tonight. So have a 20% min, but I'm actually getting a little bit over 30%. So I'm definitely okay with that. He can put up a triple-double any night, so possible he can do that tonight.
I don't think that's a bad call. Cade is one of those guys who we've seen go off multiple times in tough matchups. He's been in pretty solid form here lately too. Multiple 50-plus performances. He's shown some upside of about 60-plus here recently. You're talking me into it. I wasn't really looking at him too closely. He was one of the studs I was comfortable fading, but I'll follow you and put a 20% min on him. Or actually, I'll do a 15% min just to kind of balance out me originally not having exposure to him and call it a day. Anything else or anyone else you want to touch on? Did you think about Duran at all?
I did, but I just don't really like him tonight. So yeah. I don't hate it if you throw like a 5% min on him, but I just chose not to.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hell no. At this price tag, I just think there's better plays. But like you said, not the craziest play. Next game, we have the highest total on the slate, but also a wide-ish spread at 9.5 points. Cavs against the Pacers. The frustrating thing here is the Cavs have absolutely nothing to play for at this point, at least when it comes to the playoffs. Donovan Mitchell is out because of that. Darius Garland is out. Evan Mobley is out. And Max Strus is also out. A lot of players who see a lot of time, and then we just got the notification that Jared Allen, his minutes are going to be limited. I don't know why he's playing, maybe for a bonus or maybe some type of record he's trying to keep, but he's not going to be out there for too long. What was your approach here?
So start with Ty Jerome, of course, the obvious play. No Garland or Mitchell. He's just a no-brainer. So we'll have a ton of him. Put a 25% on DeAndre Hunter. He's definitely value that I didn't want to forget. So threw that man on him. He's someone else who's going to see a ton of minutes, and we know he has really good upside for the price. And then this is where it gets gross, but these next four guys are 3K plays and the highest game total, and they're going to be seeing a lot of minutes, especially with that Jared Allen news, who could definitely only see we haven't projected 27, but wouldn't be surprised if it's fewer than that. So I think that makes these 3K guys great leverage plays. So Sam Merrill put a 10% on, and then Okoro, Wade, and Porter Jr. I put 5% mins on. Just when almost the whole team is out, always want to get a nice mixture of some of these other guys.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think for me, I prefer a lot of the value from the Pelicans game over a lot of these Cavs guys just because they have less options, but that doesn't mean that these guys can't go off, and I don't think it's a bad approach to just kind of add them into the mix of value, which is exactly what you're doing. I'm not following you completely, but Ty Jerome, he shows up by himself in the DS. You don't have to do anything there, but I do have a 15% min on Hunter. I'm not going to probably get to field weight exposure or anything like that, but kind of like Cade, I just like having a little bit of exposure there. Sam Merrill, I have a 10% min on. I like him probably the most out of these players just because of the mixture of his price tag and his usage rate. And then that's pretty much it for me. I understand the Okoro call. Not bad. And then who else are you looking at? Craig Porter Jr. He also stood out a little bit for me too in the sim, but ultimately I'm just going to probably not get too much exposure unless the DS kind of swaps things in for me. Anyone else you want to touch on for the Cavs?
No, kind of like you say, you probably don't need these guys with the Pelicans value, but just at this ownership, I never mind throwing a shot on, especially when all of them were almost flat min price. So,
wait, you know what? I'm going against my own philosophy. Highest total game. I'm looking for reasons to play these guys, not reasons not to. So I'm gonna put a 6% min on Merle or on Okoro. Gonna follow you on Porter Jr. and do a 5%. And then Ty shows up by himself. And I think that's pretty much. And then I'll do a 26% min on Hunter just to kind of match the field there. Sometimes I forget my own things. And like if I look back at it, I'll get more mad at myself for not following what I usually do. So even if I don't love the spot, I'll still kind of follow the way I usually go about things. Next up, we have the Pacers going up against the Cavs. This is an interesting spot for me because on paper, this looks like a really tough matchup, and the Cavs are still coached well. They're still going to play solid defense tonight, but it's a softer matchup than it appears. And so with it being a high total game, a lot of these Pacer studs are going to be leverage plays for me tonight. Guys like Tyrese Halliburton at 9,200. We don't have a lot of safe studs on the slate, and he's one of those guys we know can be explosive even in tough matchups. He's very frustrating, but putting a 20% min on Tyrese Halliburton on a 5-game slate, if he fails and sucks tonight, it's not going to ruin my night, but if he crushes, then it can definitely make my night. So for me, it was a bit of a no-brainer. I made him a leverage play there. Oh, Tattoo. I saw the question. I got you. We'll come back to it at the end. And then the one I was a little bit more iffy on, but the sim model liked a bit, is Pascal Siakam. I have a 26% min on him, making him a bit of a leverage play too. And then Miles Turner should have a super soft matchup tonight and put a 12% min there. And then that's pretty much it for me with the Pacers. I think you could consider Mathurin, maybe Nesmith, but I think you're getting a little cute when I think there's just better options on the slate. What was your thought process here?
Yeah, I didn't go quite as high on some of these guys, but I definitely wanted exposure. Like you said, it looks like it might be a tough matchup for these guys, but all the backups are in for Cleveland, so it's way softer matchup. And I'm pretty much just sticking to my usual trend with this team is getting exposure to the top 3 guys. So I just have a 10% min on Siakam, Turner, and Hallie.
Nice. Okay. Next thing we have team and the Hawks that have started to come together, but they have a really just pretty gross matchup against the Nets. What did you do here, Brandon?
Not too much. Didn't really have to do anything with Trey. I'm getting a good amount of him, around 50%. I did consider Okongwu. He's been looking really, really good, but even though he's been playing well, I can't stomach that 8,400 price tag. So definitely didn't feel the need to force him in, but definitely okay with whatever the DS chooses to give me on him. And then LeVert, not my favorite guy to play, but he's just another value that I want to throw in the mix. And pretty sure he was popping on the sim model too, so I put a 15% min on him.
Yeah, no, I get every name you mentioned there, and I agree with pretty much all of it. Trae Young, I didn't do anything to in the DS, and he's showing up in about, let's see here, 31% of my lines, so slightly under the field. I do like other studs more than him, and again, he's also at that point guard position where I'm prioritizing Halliburton a bit, so I don't feel like that 4% gap is going to change things enough for me to feel like I need to force exposure here. Karis LeVert did stand out in the sim for me as well, but ultimately I still wanted to prioritize some of the other plays. He's showing up in only 1% of my lines currently. Dyson Daniels is showing up in 2% of my lines, and then Okongwu is only showing up in 1%. They're just not a priority for me, unfortunately, in a spot that I just don't love. On the other side of this game, though, we have the Nets, who are in a really soft matchup. None of these guys are really overly expensive. I think Zaire Williams is probably the guy I thought I would be most excited to play here, but they just have a ton of bodies, to be honest. They just have a lot of guys playing average minutes. They're tanking. No one really stood out here for me. Did you see things differently, Brandon?
Nope. I pretty much skipped right past this team. I mean, there's definitely someone here, 1 or 2 guys that can surprise you and break the slate, but that's pretty much just putting a blindfold on and throwing a dart. So not taking any chances here.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I hate seeing the Hawks on a slate and I'm not attacking them. It just feels wrong.
Yeah,
but I couldn't find a reason to do it, so I'm not. Next up, we have the Pelicans. This is where a lot of news came in that really just kind of flipped this slate on its head. Jose Alvarado is out. Misi is out. Bruce Brown is out. Kelly O is out. and then a lot of these guys have been out for a while. They're tanking. They only have 8 players available, maybe. Yeah, they only have 8 players available, and a matchup against the Bucks is not really too scary because they are also missing a decent amount of people. Who are you looking at here? And I see you have some men's. What was your thought process behind some of those decisions?
So pretty much this team has 8 players available. I'm playing everybody on the side of the ball. So Makovic and Peyton are my top 2 priorities, and they both will be core plays. Put a 40% min on Reeves. He's been really solid too, and I will play one of the players who will see the most minutes. So definitely wanted to make sure I didn't fall below the field there. And then everyone else, I just put mins to match the field, even like some of these 3K turds down below. Again, there's just 8 players, and there's going to be a lot of minutes between all these guys. So just want to make sure I'm exposed to everyone here.
Yeah. In situations like this, when there is a team that just doesn't have a lot of players available, you do want just exposure to all of them to some degree. And a lot of the reason for that is we've seen it time and time again. There's players who are in awesome spots like Matkovic and Reeves, and then they get into foul trouble. And then you're like, oh shit, this guy was stupid cheap, and now they're not going to play as much as we thought they were going to. But the guy who really benefits is that like 3, 4, 5% owned backup. And there were only 8 players. It wasn't hard to force exposure to that guy, but a lot of people don't think about that, or they don't force it. And like you said, Brandon, like if these guys don't come through for us, it's only like 5, 6%. It's not going to ruin your night, but it can definitely make your night if they come through. So I'm right there with you. I had a lot of these guys show up by themselves. So like Matkovic showed up by himself as a core play. Elf showed up by himself. Reeves, I'm showing up in about 57% of my lines, so I'm still over the field there. And then Jamal Cain, I have a 15% min on. Keon Brooks, I had to put a 25% min on just to kind of get him to show up a bit more. Lester, I have an 8% min. And then Kelly, I'm going to up that to 6%. I had it at 5 originally. And then Jeremiah, Robinson, Earl, I had to put a 25% min on. And pretty much all these guys, I'm just going to continue to watch their ownership as we get closer to lock and just make sure I'm over the field across the board. Anything else you want to touch on there?
Nope. Play the Pelicans. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's why I feel a lot better about this slate than I did beforehand.
Giannis will play, so there
Ooh.
goes my play that I had on the next one.
Why? Why are they? NBA teams are stupid, man. Like, I don't understand half their philosophy behind anything they do. The Bucks have basically nothing to play for. They're going to be in that 5th spot, really, no matter what. But it looks like Giannis is going to play it. It's a very soft matchup. I don't know. It makes me nervous. But, Brandon, what's your thought process here for the Bucks?
So I'm going to have to revisit this team because I initially was playing as if Giannis would be out and increase the projection on Portis and made him a core play. But now that we know Giannis is playing, I don't think I'm going to have him as a core play because he was popping quite a bit earlier. I'll probably limit him to maybe like around this 33% or maybe 40%. I probably don't want much more than that. It's a really solid matchup, and he should do whatever he wants here, but there's like zero reason for him to go all out here. So someone like him at almost 13K definitely worries me. So now, and also with him in too, not as excited about any of these other guys. So kind of a wash for me here. I might still force like 10% on Portis just in case Giannis doesn't play a full game. But outside of that, I'm not really liking anyone else here.
Yeah, I'm fully aware that the last time we had this show, I faded Giannis and he went off for like 90 or 100 points. That happens. We faded him like 10 times this season and he didn't do that. So I'm not going to let that dictate my decision and thought process here. At this price tag, I just really don't like it. I don't think he'll see those 30-plus minutes tonight, and if he does, that's just humiliating for them. I am going to cap him at 20%. I'm not going to X him out. He'll still show up in a few of my lines. He's just not a priority for me. I might even lower it to 15%. I'm going to right now. At that price tag, I just think there's better studs on the slate. If it burns me, it burns me. I'm not really overly concerned about it, though, to be honest. And then Bobby Portis is still going to be a leverage play for me. I have a 10% min on him. I liked him before we thought Giannis was potentially going to miss, and I still like him now. At 5,700, I do think he'll see around 25 minutes. He's a really strong points per minute player, and in a really soft matchup, especially if this game becomes a bit more of a blowout and or Giannis doesn't see as much run as we think he might, Bobby could be one of those guys who can really make your line tonight. So 10% min, Bobby Portis leverage play, and then Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr., they were standing out for me a bit earlier, especially if Giannis was out, but I think we have better value options, so I'm not going to force exposure there at this point. Am I missing anyone else, or are we good?
I'm good, but I changed my min on Portis to 20. I just want to be really aggressive on him. I think this is a spot where he can still smash and break the slate. So hopefully this ownership holds at 5%, and we're way over that. So
I hope that. Hey, I'm gonna do 15. You're convincing me to go up a little bit. I won't do 20 just yet, but I do feel pretty good about him still. I don't know. Could be wrong, but we'll see what happens. Next up, we have one of my favorite spots on the slate, team I really wanted to attack with in a really soft matchup against Memphis. We also have a nice total at 231 and a 2-point spread. If you look at the rest of the games on this slate, you don't see close spreads across the board. So for you, Brandon, who are you looking at for the Timberwolves?
So Anthony Edwards didn't have to do much to him. He's currently showing up as a core play. I love attacking, especially studs against this Memphis team. Last couple of times we've been on here, we mentioned Curry as one, and he absolutely crushed against this defense. Do love Ant quite a bit tonight. And then for some other guys in, so Gobert, he's been pretty solid. I still like his price at 6,700. So 20% min on him, 15 on Randall. And then even some of these guys lower, like Dante, 4,500, another value play. I wanted that in the mix, who was looking good on the sim model. And then Conley, he's another guy that isn't always my favorite to play, but he sees close to 30 minutes and is really, really cheap, and also going against his old team too. So figured a 5% man wouldn't hurt there.
Yeah, it's so weird, this Timberwolves team. They have been all over the place this season. Right now they're in the play-in spot, but they win this game. If they win tomorrow, they have a decent chance of making the playoffs, or not having to play in the play-in game. This is a good spot for him. I have a 40% min on Edwards. Again, like you mentioned, fantastic matchup. Julius Randle is someone who I forced exposure to. I have a 15% min on him. Edwards hasn't shown a ton of consistent upside this season. He did for a little bit, and that was when Randle was out. But I still want to make sure I have some exposure to both here. And then Rudy Gobert is going to be a leverage play for me tonight. At his price tag and a fantastic matchup, this is going to be a spot I attack every time. Then I have a 5% min on Naz Reid and a 5% min on Jaden McDaniels. Just two bigs I like having exposure to, once again, in a soft matchup. And then Dante DiVincenzo, I have an 8% min on. He's just been a solid shooter, and you can score on this Memphis team. I do think there's better value options, but especially in this hammer game, I just didn't want to not have exposure to guys that can go off tonight. I can't follow you on Conley. I think I hate him now. So that's a bias of mine. You can ignore that if you would like to. Next up, we have the Memphis Grizzlies going up against the Timberwolves. Brutal matchup for these guys. I would love for Memphis to win tonight selfishly, because that solidifies them being in the playoffs. And that first round is my favorite round when it comes to DFS. and just having a team that's in a soft matchup that we can just make sure we're significantly over the field on is my favorite thing. So not related to DFS, but would love to see Memphis win today too. But the only guy I forced exposure to was Zach Edey. We've been on him before. It was cool. I don't love the matchup, but the price tag is solid. He's been a really strong points per minute guy. I have a 12% min on him, and that's really the only Memphis player I'm forcing exposure to. But it looks like you like these guys a bit more than I do. How are you thinking about things?
So I can't say I really like this side of the ball, but with it being a 5-game slate, the closest projected spread and the hammer game, I just want exposure to the top guys who have the upside to break a slate. I will say I do like Edey quite a bit, and I might actually bump him up to 15%. I do like him quite a bit, but between Jive, JJJ, and Bane, they could very well fail in this spot, but would not be surprised if any of those guys pops off tonight. So just kind of a strategy of mine on smaller slates.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good call on Ja. I'm going to force exposure to him too. Oh, I just switched to late swap on accident. But let's see. What min did I just add there? Yeah, I did a 15% min too. And so, yeah, that's pretty much this slate in a nutshell. Let's look at some of the questions we have. Tattoo, good to see you, man. He said, I know y'all are going game by game, but I suffer from short-term memory loss. So going to ask now, one must-have for single entry and one pivot, high dollar, low entry, or low amount of entrance. Brandon, who's your one must-have if you have one?
I would say it's between Ty Jerome, Peyton, and Makovich. Honestly, I feel like all three of those are must-haves for single entry.
And you only needed one, and you gave three, and then I was gonna take whichever one you didn't pick, and I was like, "That's an easy question."
Ty Jerome is my one.
Yeah, Ty would have been mine as well, but he's starting to. With some of the changes I made to the DS, he started to fall for me a good bit, so I just went ahead and forced a 50% min on Ty. But I'll say Alfred Payton is someone that I want to see show up in my single entry line today, especially for high dollar. What about one pivot or one guy that you're kind of on when it comes to single entry?
I haven't built mine yet, so I'm not sure who low owned I want to go. We just mentioned them in the last game, but I definitely wouldn't mind taking a shot on Edey and single entry.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of going about it. The Edeys, the Rudy Goberts, the Siakams, the Halliburtons. Those are kind of the key four that I'm targeting. But like you, I also haven't looked or made that single entry line quite yet. I feel like there's one other question, but I think we might have just covered it with Martez. We're not really on Okongwu tonight. But yeah, Pinky, we can't go wrong with Ty Jerome. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for us, y'all. If you need anything, we will be in the Discord. If you're interested in joining DFS Army, we probably won't do a show tomorrow. A 10-game slate, like we said, is really gross this time of year, but we will be back for the playoffs. Whether it starts on the weekend or a weekday, I will do a show because I freaking love playoff DFS, at least round one. Play-in tournament will be a bit more TBD, depending on how those price tags play out. But anything else you want to say, Brandon? It's been a good season.
Nope. Definitely ready for tonight. So hopefully we all smash.
Agreed. All right. Good luck, y'all. Peace out.
Big time. No man. Diamonds in my teeth. I got a lot of shine.